It's 10 minutes before 7 o'clock here on Morning Live. A very good morning to you and thank you so much for staying with us here on the show. As Human Rights Month draws to an end, people opposing women abuse, that's POWA, says South Africans have become accustomed to high levels of gender-based violence. According to the organization, an average of 360 incidences of physical and sexual abuse against women take place every day. They've now launched a news publication to highlight this human rights violation of dignity and freedom as well. But to talk to us more about the situation, of course, we now joined by the group's executive director, Nhlanhla Mokwena, as well as Rosie Motene. Rosie is a social activist against women abuse. Good morning to you, ladies. Thank you so much for coming through.
Good morning.
Thank you so much. And I was having this discussion with both of you just during the ad break, saying, here we are again, seated here, talking about the same issue. POWA has been in existence for over 39 years, but it looks like we're not getting anywhere. What is lacking, Rosie?
You know, as Nhlanhla said, we need a multi-sectoral plan in terms of moving forward. We need a strategic plan that government needs to be put into place. Also, our judicial system isn't in favour of the woman. And also just the conversations that we have on a day-to-day basis regarding just abuse, regarding sexual violence and so forth. We need to rehash those and be more cognizant of what we're saying and what we're thinking and what we're feeling.
Are we even having those conversations? I mean, we had guests here last week on Morning Live where we were talking about morals and values and where we've lost it as the nation, and it looks like we're not talking about those things.
We are talking about them. It's just that we are small organizations that are trying to survive, so we are doing the little bit that we can based on the resources that we have. But for us, a multi-sectoral plan that is costed and that is invested where there's money to actually implement it will ensure that we have parenting programs, we have programs that are addressing boys and men, we have programs that continue services for women, we have programs that dialogue with young women and older women. We have programs that deal with the patriarchy that we are promoting in our country, and we also have programs that are dealing with the socialization of our children. But a lot of organizations in the GBV sector are struggling to survive as it is.
Yeah. But what's happening? Because we have a department responsible for women. One would imagine that such a plan would be in place now, because I remember during the femicide cases that we've seen last year, the minister came out, the former minister came out to say, look, this is a crisis. It needs to be dealt with as a matter of urgency. But what's happening?
You see, the thing is, in terms of, sorry to cut you off, in terms of our government, yes, we're pushing those barriers and so forth, but I have to stress that this is also the time where the private sector, this is where corporate needs to come on board. This is where we need the funding that will provide support to these different programs that we're going, while we're still addressing the issue of our government and our changing of ministers and so forth, because it's not just something that can be swept under the carpet anymore. It's a dire situation.
It is indeed. But social media, I know that you've recently launched your news publication there, Rosie has it, and you're not happy with what we as the media are doing in terms of the coverage of such cases of violence against women. So let's first talk about your publication before we come to social media and its effects.
Our publication is a partnership between POWA and Joe Public, and it's a publication where we are highlighting the fact that 360 incidences of violence against women and girls occurs on a daily basis.
But are they being reported?
How often does media report on these incidences? We only report if it's a well-known case. We only report if there are certain people. But there's a lot of women where their cases do not make media. And we are saying this is a national crisis. This should be on our agenda as a community, as a country, on a daily basis. Because if we can record 360, it means there's even many more, because these are those cases that we know about that have come to us. But what about the other organizations? What about the women? There's 1 in 25 women are not reporting gender-based violence, and that is a huge problem.
Yeah, and I know, Rose, you made mention of our justice system failing us as women. Let's just have a look at the case that took place in the Eastern Cape. I think it was last week Friday, where Lonwabo Solonzi was described as the South Africa's worst serial rapist. He's been sent behind bars. So are we starting to see a shift in how things are operating?
We see a shift, and then we're taking a few steps back. You know, unfortunately, those type of cases and the outcome outcome of some of these cases, it isn't on an equal footing. So in some cases, you'll see serial rapists being sent out on bail for a couple of R1,000. Because this was a high-profile case, then of course it had a lot of public attention towards it. So I can't see, some days there's a bit of movement forward. Some days we feel as if we've gone 10 to 20 years back.
Yeah, but social media, is it really contributing? I mean, you get hashtags. I do know that your publication was trending last week when it was launched as well.
Yeah.
So is it really helping?
Social media is definitely has a major factor in it, because people are now talking about it. What I've noticed on a personal level is that we're now hearing stronger voices from males. We're now hearing stronger voices from the African males, especially. And people are, whether it's a sexist or comments that don't really abide with women abuse, but at least people are talking about it, so it's getting out there.
Let me just go back to this particular case in the Eastern Cape, because I was reading about it. Of course, we've been reporting about it. This particular Lonwabo was found guilty of 39 counts of rape and additional charges. And of course, he's actually pleaded guilty to the rape of women and girls, typically between the age of 11 and 46 years. What's this saying about our society? Are we a broken society? Are we a violent society?
I would say yes, we are. And it's not a society that suddenly erupted. Rapists have been around for many centuries. It's just that these stories haven't come to the forefront. And so we need to address that, and we need to address the reality of that we are living in a violent society. Violence is glamorized. It's glamorized within the press. It's glamorized within conversations that people are having with each other. And we need to go back to that core and figure out a way to stop this thinking about abuse and our approach towards it. Because it's not, as I said, it's not a new phenomenon, and it's something that's part of our daily lives.
It is. And you work closely with women who've been abused, Sister Nhlanhla. What are they saying? What difficulties do they come across? I remember we had the MEC for Safety and Security here with one of the survivors of abuse who was basically saying that it was difficult for me to get out of that particular relationship because I was depending on my partner. So I believe you come across such cases, which is making it much more difficult.
A lot. Women would stay in abusive relationships because of their financial dependence on the abuser, but then at the same time they stay because of pressure from their family members who are saying marriage is important and it's not something that you can just leave. So it's pressure from your family, pressure from your religion, and women stay because they are not given options. What is important is that we should not blame survivors. Whenever they come out and say, I'm in an abusive relationship, help me, they need to be given options so that they can decide what they want to do, and whatever options they take, we should support them and ensure that we help them throughout their ordeal. But most of the time, as family members, even as friends, we judge them for what is happening to them, which is wrong because it does not help them to actually come out and end the abuse. And research has indicated that a boy and a girl child who are growing up in an abusive home, in an abusive family, are more likely to be the boy to be the abuser, the girl to be the abuser, or to be the abused. So what are we doing with our children if we are not raising them in an environment that is peaceful, in an environment that is teaching them to be able to resolve issues without using violence? But at this point in time, we are raising them in violent communities, in violent homes, and therefore we are breeding another generation of abusers or of the abused.
Yes. Ladies, I wish we could go on and on and on because it's a very important issue, but we'll leave it at that for now. Thank you so much. The publication is available?
It is available. We have a website, thedailyabuse.co.za. Otherwise, contact POWA.co.za, and we're on all social media streams.
All right. Thank you so much indeed to the Executive Director of POWA, Nhlanhla Mokwena, and Rosie Motene, who is a social activist against abuse. We're taking a quick break.